Okay, good morning everyone. Morena tātou katoa. If you've got the karakia up, please. Karakia up, please, on the board. Thank you. We'll begin the meeting with the karakia. Kia inoi tātou. Tui e ranga, tui e raro, tui e roto, tui e waho, tui e nā kaimahi o te kaunihira o Kirikiri roa. Whai te iti kahurangi, kia u, kia mau, kia ita, no humie huie, tai kie. Thank you, everybody. We're now going into the item itself. Do we have any apologies?
Councillor
Moko for lateness, and probably too late altogether, depending how long the meeting goes, but that's okay. Not now, I haven't moved that, Max, I've crossed that out. So Councillor Wilson is back, having frozen his derriere off in the mayor's cold stores. So we've only got...
With the Mayor of Saitama.
Yeah, we've had a formal delegation for Saitama this week. It's been highly successful, but I'll talk to you about that in another time. And Mark is online. You have something to say?
Yes, just a 1 p.m. departure, please.
If we're still here talking about this one matter at 1 p.m, I'll be severely disappointed with myself. But let's try. But I'm not going to give a time because I'm not going to jinx it, right? Okay. I'm not jinxing it. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Also move that the apologies get accepted, and Sarah will second, and everyone else will say aye. And we will confirm the agenda. I will so move. A Deputy Mayor will second, and we will all say aye. Declarations of interest, are there any? I don't think so, so we'll move on from those. And do we have anybody in public forum? We do. Good morning.
To move the proposed Tiwhi Terrace crossing south away from the roundabout towards Stanley Street. I also ask that the council installs a flat signalised crossing instead of the proposed raised and non-signalised crossing. With the urgent need for a safer crossing, I also suggest that you look at the feasibility and the legality of installing a temporary interim crossing. Get some paint, some portable ramps, set up some traffic management lights, and trial a crossing so that at least they've got a safe crossing there while you decide about design, approval and the build. It sounds like this should have been done many years ago, and there's been a lot of delays. The current staff recommended crossing is approximately 25 to 30 metres from the roundabout exit. This is too close to the roundabout and will cause confusion, distraction and put people at risk. And this is people on the roundabout, navigating the roundabout in vehicles, and people on the pedestrian crossing. I've put in my document that I sent you about these minimum approach site distances and crossing site distances outlined by NZTA and Ausroad. I think you should ask staff to check those calculations and make sure that there's enough sightline distance when people are partway around the roundabout. They're potentially going to be blocked by other traffic, their view, and they're going to be watching out for traffic on the roundabout and trying to see if people are crossing on the crossing. So I think that's going to cause a number of disruptions and risk to both pedestrians and vehicle users. My views on the crossing features. Signalised crossing may have less need for a large crossing site distance. See the NZTA guidelines. I think they recommend having a large site distance, but I think it's less essential on a signalised crossing. If you remove the dedicated green cycle crossing across the proposed crossing, you've got a narrower crossing which you can fit in more possible locations down towards Stanley Street, so it's a smaller footprint. I strongly recommend you keep the curb build-outs, so that should improve line of sight for both the pedestrians and drivers. And also, if you have those curb build-outs, the issue that staff have raised about trees blocking the view down towards Stanley Street will be less of an issue because the pedestrians will be standing out on those curb build-outs and will be able to see up the road, and drivers will be able to see them as well more easily. Keep the median refuge island for improved safety. I've put on that map a number of alternative crossing locations. The ones down towards Stanley Street are approximate. I went out there last night, and there's a good one if you move the west side bus stop down towards Stanley Street about 5 metres. I think you can fit a crossing in there between the trees and between the few driveways that there are down there. There are also options of gaining an extra 10 to 15 metres up by the mosque. If you just move the crossing a bit down, you might have to negotiate with the mosque about moving their driveway, but that gives you an extra 10 metres. So that's 10 metres more stopping distance with people coming off the driveway, off the roundabout. And that's a few, 2 or 3 more cars that can probably fit in there at rush hour before they jam up that roundabout. Just looking at some agenda items, you've got the standard social, economic, environmental and cultural considerations, a few things that staff have missed here. So social, economic and cultural are affected if you are disincentivising people from car travel and sort of punishing car drivers. That is social, economic and cultural impacts. There's environmental impacts you don't take too much consideration of in terms of noise, vibration and pollution caused by the raised crossing at that location. And moving on to point 46 of item 6, the risks. You talk about there is also a risk of losing funding and potentially impacting our financial strategy. Now, I've raised a number of times that some of these raised crossings look like they're being used to boost up the debt ceiling. So we don't want to be in a situation where you're making bad design decisions in the city due to these financial pressures and the kind of perverse financial pressures to spend more and get the city deeper into debt rather than go for a lower cost option. Because the more you spend on the crossing, potentially the more your debt limit raises and the more you can borrow and spend elsewhere.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the clarity in which you set that out. It was very helpful. Anybody else in public? Sorry, I haven't got the... we've got Mohammed. Mohammed? Oh, hello. Couldn't see you there. Thank you. Please come forward. Yes, please. Make yourself comfortable.
Assalamu alaikum. Honorable Mayor, members of Hamilton City Council, office bearers, staff and guests. Greetings from Waikato Muslim Association. I'm Muhammad Abdul Basid, representing Waikato Muslim Association. To begin with, I'd like to deeply appreciate and we feel very thankful for the City Council having taken so much deep interest in the problems that the Waikato residents are facing in terms of pedestrian crossing and other things. We really appreciate that. And to begin with, our need and our desire for having a pedestrian crossing across 921 Heafy Terrace, which is in front of our masjid complex, it is so much required that not only the 5 times daily prayers which take place and a lot of people cross over. We have a lot of children coming to the early education center, and then we have the after school classes which take place, teaching languages and science and technology and engineering for our intermediate and high school students, which would like to cross over to the beautiful Cloudlands Park, but it's difficult and risky. Apart from the masjid complex, the residents of that area and those walking, the pedestrians walking down from Boundary Road, they feel it more convenient to cross from across in front of the masjid because it is more convenient to them. So with all this in mind, we request the council for a raised pedestrian crossing. Technically, what is the feasibility? Your technical team can study that. But what we feel is that we require this pedestrian raised crossing to help us and make us feel safe about this. And we've been waiting for this patiently, and we don't mind waiting a little bit more, but we definitely need some decision so that we can feel satisfied that yes, things are going in the right direction. This is our, once again, the same request, and we thank you for all the help that the City Council has been giving us so far, and we look forward for it. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Salaam alaikum.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the clarity of that. We have also received a written submission from Maria Salmons, and that is attached to item 6, so you'll find it there, councillors. So to ease the questions from staff, and we have visitors here, don't we have representatives from NZTA? I will propose putting 2 motions, one being the staff recommendation and one being one that has been drafted in conjunction with colleagues here, so that you can understand the options that we're discussing, because I think it would be useful rather than putting them up later and arguing over the detail of them. And that way you can form your questions according to what is relevant there, if that makes sense. That made sense to me. So if we could just put those up, please, Amy, and just give you a second to digest those. And meanwhile, I'll ask staff to come forward for their presentation, please. Staff, you have seen the alternative recommendation? Not yet. You have? You have. Okay, excellent. So on the basis of no surprises, let's get that up. So you can see what the staff recommendation is there. Nobody's put the staff recommendation, so it's not there. So you can see the staff recommendation in your agenda. And this is the alternative motion, which I was also happy to be part of moving or seconding. So it's okay. We'll get there when we get there. Let's look at the content of it and have some discussion around it. So Sarah, because you had a key hand in drafting there. Oh, were you hoping to avoid that? No, you played a useful role in helping to draft alternative thinking around this, because this has really vexed us all, because I think, at the end of the day, we all recognise that a crossing is required. So would you like to explain what you are intending out of this motion?
Right, so essentially B would say that if we look at another option, for example, the signalised level crossing, it could take longer, not fit within the SURF timeframes, and also it changes the scope of it, which is a problem I understand as well. So it's saying reallocate the SURF funding to something which is currently also inside the SURF program scope, because we've already, and so then we have staff come back to us with some other options, and we've talked about, for example, a level signalised crossing, but other options for the crossing on Hefe Terrace in early 2025, and also look at the wider considerations of that boundary Hefe intersection at the same time. And it also notes that this is a high priority for our local share funding. So when we're prioritising that, this would be a high priority for it in terms of funding it with our local share. So any questions for clarity on that?
There will be some questions.
And when I say, the safe pedestrian facility, the crossing would be the priority for local share funding.
Yeah, there will be some questions. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, I guess the mover of the motion, which you've obviously written, does that mean in theory that when the subsequent report or options come back, we could still be left with a raised platform that has to be fully funded, but the surf quantum that we had identified has already then been spent on bus shelters and parking.
Understanding though, I'll let Tanya answer that. Yeah.
Mayor Paula, our understanding is if because the project scope changes, the surf funding allocation is no longer available. Any other treatment that we do in that particular area, whether north or south, would be local share funded only out of that pot of money that we have.
Okay, if I could, Mayor Paula, in terms of the surf funding criteria, staff had advised in the past that in fact if you removed the raised platform component, that would mean it wouldn't qualify. I'm correct in saying that was wrong, that it would still qualify, but what's triggered the difference is if we move to a signalised crossing, that then falls outside of the criteria for surf. Is that correct?
If we change any part of the currently approved surf-funded project, which includes a raised safety platform, and move it or change the treatment to be a signalised crossing, there is no longer surf funding available for that project.
Yes.
I have a follow-on question from that staff on the basis of having recently been at head office in NZTA. Don't mean to put you on the spot, please don't be uncomfortable. And in talking with them, it was clear to me that the NZTA realised in some instances to be flexible. And the words that they said is, don't worry about that, we have another solution that we think will work very well and we're prepared to be flexible. That's what I heard in Wellington. I'm not quite hearing it now. Can you just explain where we're at with NZTA?
Maybe if I can introduce Peter McGlashan.
That would be good. Thank you,
Who's from the
Peter.
New Zealand Transport Agency.
I know, sorry Peter.
Yes. So
Put you on the spot there, but...
He's the acting manager of urban mobility for NZTA.
Kia ora koutou. I did address the council at the start of this program about a year ago. So yeah, as mentioned, acting manager of urban mobility at Waka Kotahi. Unfortunately, Madam Mayor, I wasn't in that meeting in Wellington, so I can't vouch for any promises that were made down there. The challenge that we have with this program of work is that the deadline does make it difficult to go too far from what has been approved. So we are able to consider alternatives. However, depending on how far the deviation is from the approved one, I guess raises concerns as to how long it would take for those alternatives to be
What is
presented.
that deadline, please?
Well, there isn't. The deadline depends on, I guess, the scale of change and therefore the amount of time it would take to deliver it. So if we speak about the options on the table, signalised crossing further south, that isn't the project that we've approved, and so there is a process where Hamilton City Council can come to NZTA and say, this is the alternative, we'd like you to consider it, and we can go through that process. But the reminder is the tension that exists and how long it would take to prepare that rescope, do the designs for that, come to us, and then come back. So
I understood that NZTA were doing that work and had, because I was literally told the words, don't worry, we feel we found an alternative solution that you'll be pleased with. I don't see it here though.
No, and I can't speak to who it was in that meeting that provided you with that. What I can say is...
The Chief Executive.
I appreciate that. I'm quite a few levels away from the Chief Executive, so I haven't had that conversation with her. But Hamilton City Council are able to come to us with an alternative, which we can consider. And I guess what the motion provides is an opportunity for Hamilton City Council to guarantee that they will be able to make use of the remaining funds and potentially come up with a solution using local share at the location. The concern is that if it takes too much longer to come up with an alternative, you might get to a point where those funds aren't able to be used because you run out of time. It's purely because of the unique nature of the SURF fund having to close
Yeah,
at
I
June
understand that.
2025.
So you're not able to give me sort of like, are we talking 3 months, 6 months? What are we
Well,
talking?
the project has to be finished by June 2025, construction and monitoring and evaluation. Again, I'm not an engineer,
So
but
that's the window.
that's the window. So, and you haven't gone out for public consultation yet, as far as I know, with the more detailed design. So the challenge coming up to Christmas in January is if it takes another 3-4 weeks to come back with an alternative for be it traffic lights. I can assure you that the raised signal platform, the raised safety platform is off the table. That's not something that needs to be considered because we aren't able to approve those in the current political climate. That would be a decision for Hamilton City Council to make as to what they see as the appropriate solution for that location to come to us in the scope change.
So let me just hear that again. Ray, this is new information to us, I feel. I have said, I've been quite clear that raised platforms are off the table, and that is based on public feedback and council's position. You're saying that raised platforms, as far as
This can be approved as designed, as approved, because the approval for
Because it
that
was
was done previous to the minister's direction.
So even though the political will of the land may have changed, it could be
That's
approved.
why, yeah, so just to
Right.
clarify, that's why Hamilton City Council are still in the program, is because they had done such great work at the start of the program to get $10 million worth of projects approved with, you know, a level of detail which we were comfortable with.
Yeah, thank you.
And therefore that has been approved. The challenge we have is that if we were to revisit designs, raised safety platforms in a new design wouldn't be approved. And I think that's where the
That's an
confusion,
anomaly, isn't it?
that's the confusion that happened with that previous email that was sent, was the mention of raised safety platforms in that previous email in the last meeting.
And my understanding
Wasn't
of
able to
that, but I
clarify.
guess you can't confirm or deny maybe, is that the government has also indicated that alternatives to raised crossings are what they expect NZTA as a delivery arm to focus on.
From all things that are being considered for design onwards.
Yeah.
The challenge we
Forward
have is that
thinking, right.
this design has been approved in its current state.
I know I'm coming. I am coming. I'm just following that thread through, if I may, Ewan. One more question from you before we go to Councillor Biddle, or one or two on this.
Let's just remove any ambiguity. What I think you've said is if this council chose to approve the current proposal but removed the raised platform component and submitted those changes to fit within the time frame, the SURF funding would still be available.
What I've said is that it would be considered. So I can't approve the alternative without seeing the designs, but Hamilton City Council have the ability to come for a scope change review and that to be considered at that location. However, I just want to reiterate, we have concerns if it was to take too much longer with alternatives, and hence this, I guess, is a pragmatic way of assuring that the funding is secured for local use.
Peter, that wasn't I accept that you've
Apologies.
reiterated your time frame. My question to you was that if staff had or can provide an alteration to the existing design without the raised platform and meet with the time frame, SURF funding is still available.
It would be considered depending on when that was received.
Right, but you can't tell us at all that time frame when you require that alteration.
No, because that would require Hamilton City Council to understand the construction timelines, the time it takes for consultation. So it's not that Waka Kotahi has a date in mind, because each project is different. So the amount of time that it takes to construct this is the amount of time that we need to factor in because of the June 2025 cutoff.
Why would we have to consult again when all of the options and various bits and pieces in between have been consulted, or what's the process for, do we? So the feedback we've had from the community came in though, yeah. All right, excellent. Any other questions, Councillor Wilson?
Last one, and it's to staff and I guess also to the Chief Executive. What we've just heard from NZTA is slightly different to what we were told at the last meeting. On reflection, did you provide the accurate information to this chamber when I asked these questions at the last meeting?
The information, through the chair, the information we had at the time, yes, we were open and transparent with you.
But you accept now that that has changed?
I think, yeah, things have slightly changed behind the scenes. But yeah, at the time, we gave you what we knew at the time. And I read the email out from Wakatai at the time.
For staff, the changing political arena has been very recent, very recent. Actually, I've had those conversations in a few weeks ago. That's how recent that shift of political direction has been. So I think we have to be fair and reasonable to staff on that. Councillor Bidder.
Thank you. Peter, just for clarity, we've talked about sort of alternative designs and things. If the raised safety platform was removed and a signalised crossing was on that location, keeping everything else the same, is that a significant scope change? And is that something that is likely or unlikely to get support from NZTA?
I'd just reiterate the points we made in the last meeting, that the proximity to the roundabout means that a signalised crossing, my understanding is that it's not an option at the exact location that the currently proposed crossing is. Hence the suggestion, if a signalised crossing was considered, that it would need to be moved further away from the roundabout.
Surely the issues that make a signalised crossing suitable for that location also apply to a raised safety platform in that location.
It's a different set of rules, guidelines and legislation as to the location of things like that.
In terms of safety, because the queuing is surely the issue, how is that different between a raised safety platform and signalised crossing?
I can't answer that as not an expert in that field, but there is different rules for setbacks and sightlines from the different tools that are used. And so hence you can't use a signalised set of crossings that close to the roundabout. I think, as was mentioned previously, if the intersection was changed to a fully signalised intersection, then it does change that because the entire area is able to be controlled by those lights. But the rule as it's currently written doesn't allow for that.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Pike. Now I'm almost shouting at her, even though she's on a screen. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. I thought it cut out a bit there. All good. Yeah, I just had a question of the mover of the motion, actually, just in terms of, I think maybe something's forming here anyway, but just in terms of the timing of the, what early 2025 would be and how that might, could be further clarified, or whether we can put a more specific date, like is it January or is it March? Is there any clarity on an exact time we might be able to?
So through you, Mayor Paula, Councillor Pike, we can look to bring that either to the first council meeting, which is February, or the Infrastructure and Transport Committee in March. That timeframes enables staff to do a thorough analysis of the site and provide the best options for council to consider.
Okay. Sorry, I'm getting patchy.
Are you satisfied with the answer to your question? Have you any further questions?
I did have another question of staff as well, if we're taking general questions. Just on page 10, the map with the protected trees, or the community assets map, it mentions about how a protected tree would delay works up to 9 months, but I can't find any of the yellow symbols that indicate there is any protected trees on that map. Is that correct?
Through the chair, Councillor Pike, I'm glad you raised that, because that's the point I was going to raise. That information provided in the report was slightly incorrect. I've spoken with the arborists this morning, just to clarify the point. There are 2 notable trees in the vicinity of where we're thinking about potentially putting a signalised crossing. Those are the 2 trees immediately north of Stanley Street. The rest of them on Heafy Terrace aren't notable trees. So that slightly changes the discussion and the dynamics of what we can achieve there. Notable trees would still require some careful consideration around design. We'd need to get an arborist report, and there's a potential we'd need a consent around that, depending on what we found with regards to the arborist's report. So it's, yeah, I apologise for not having that correct in the report.
But the other trees would be able to be removed or, cut back if required.
Yeah, there's a potential for them to be crown lifted, or I mean, you can crown lift a notable tree, but you need to go through a process to achieve that, which then extends the delivery timeframes for a project. Hate to remove trees, I have to be honest, so we try and avoid it where we can. And yeah, if we are looking for an alternative, we try and certainly limit the impact on trees in this area as best we can through the design process.
Is that okay, Emma? You're
Yeah,
for now?
that's fine, thank you.
Can I ask, since it was raised in public forum, and I'm coming to you, Councillor Wilson, just the idea of a platform into the road slightly, slight narrowing of the road to bring people out from underneath the trees a bit. Is that the sort of thing that's possible?
In answer to that question, Mayor Paula, yes, that's possible, but that's something we need a bit of time to go back and have a really good look at the site, do that assessment, work with our safety engineers, look at the drainage, look at the tree route, that sort of stuff. So
thank you. So given what Peter was saying about timelines, because this is my big concern about getting timed out when we're trying to do the right thing, in terms of timelines, how soon could we see, if you were going off the recommendation that Sarah and Angela had up before the motion, how soon could we see a viable alternative to the raised platform that is currently in the staff report?
I suppose I need to throw a question back to you. What level are you talking about? Construction, delivery?
No, I'm
or design?
Talking design in order to not lose the window of opportunity we're talking about here.
We'd need to look at, well, the assessment we could get done by towards the end of this calendar year, and then, but we'd need to bring the designs back to you February at the earliest opportunity. Construction-wise, you're going beyond the 30th of June. I have to be honest.
Okay.
Reallocates the SURF funding so that we're not with it.
Yeah, and then you would take it from local share. Yeah, no, I'm just trying to get clarity about what this this slightly vague time window is that we're working in. That was really what I'm trying to achieve to help me to understand. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. First one to the mover, if I could. How many bus shelters, where, and how many bike parking facilities and where?
I don't know. So Martin could.
We do have a list of shelters and bike parking. I haven't got the list with me. But we do have a list of sites that we've targeted for future funding opportunities should they arise. It's a list that was, we've been working through for the last few years around upgrades of shelters. So they've all been, every shelter and stop has been assessed across the city for improvements. So we have that list already. But I haven't got it with me, so apologies.
And so those are currently unfunded?
Currently they're unfunded. They're sitting on a waiting list. Same with the bike parking.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. In terms of, Peter has said that he's referred to rules and legislation regarding proximity to the roundabout and the signalised crossing. I've had a quick look at some of the rules and some of the legislation, and I can't find any specific piece of legislation that says that a signalised crossing has to be a specific distance from a roundabout. Could you refer to me exactly what part of the Act you're referring to, or the rules associated with the Act?
Through the Chair, it's not so much around the legislation, the Act, it's around the design standards that we are required to work to.
So it's not legislation?
Not legislation,
Okay.
it's design standards that are set by NZTO Whakatai. In order for us to satisfy a safety audit process, that we are needing to meet certain standards.
Right. And so is that when Peter, when you said that was the rules, is that what you were referring to?
Yeah, so every element that goes on the road will have a set of design standards which are sort of, I guess, it'd be a minimum expectation. And
Great.
so engineers need to consider that when they come with solutions.
So what, just so I can find it, what is the rule? What is the standard?
I'd need to send that to you. I'd need to go through and check the Whakatai website and send you the link to the standard.
Right, but you can tell me what it says. So what are you saying, what's the measurement back from the roundabout?
I think it depends on the operating speed of the road, and off the top of my head, I believe it's 50 metres back from the roundabout that you can.
I don't want to get
But
into design by committee, but that information could be sent to you.
Yes, yeah. I'd rather not commit to that and send it through in as a link so you can read that at your leisure. But
yeah, that's fine.
there are
But
standards we work
as
to.
elected members are entitled to the information they ask for, we'll put it there that it'll come to you. Councillors, we need to get to a point where we can either go, where we have enough confidence in what's before us to go to a debate and moving on something. So anybody who hasn't asked a question, oh, Kesh is there, and then after Kesh, have a think, because you need to ask all the questions to get clarity so that we can go into the next phase of decision making. Yeah.
The Amy's changed C, I think, because the original motion we had in does not, that the staff will go away and do work on a level crossing.
Right.
Which rules out a raised platform.
Okay, thank you. Everyone understood that. Kesh.
Thank you. Just first question, I was following, fine. Martin, you said something about, in response to Councillor Emma asking about the number of protected trees on that map. Did you say that the arborists have now said there's only 2 trees? Sorry, can you just explain that? But so was your initial judgment or recommendation based on more trees being protected, or how, or could your recommendation change after that information?
Through the chair, Councillor Kesh. Yeah, from further discussions with the arborists, I think there is an opportunity to further look at an alternative location in this area. Although there's only 2 notable trees on Heaphy Terrace in this vicinity, we still need to work around them and determine whether we can design something suitable that's not going to negatively impact on those 2 notable trees. There aren't as many notable trees or protected trees as I originally thought. But there's still 2 there north of Stanley Street that we need to be very mindful of.
All right, that's really helpful. Thank you. And I did have a question. Sorry, I've forgotten your name from NZTA. Sorry. It sounds like, I mean, obviously you can hear the will of the council and the community. I was just interested in knowing whether there's any sort of flexibility in terms of the approval for the funding. Could there be conditional approval? Could there be any sort of leeway to allow us a few extra months to get this right?
Through the chair, no, this is a hard deadline of June 2025. This is a program that was established under the previous government, and the minister was comfortable completing what was already on the books. Hence, Hamilton City Council, because of the hard work that was done up front, you've ended up with a significant program of work. So the June 2025 is a hard deadline, and there's no flexibility there, unfortunately.
And if we could prove the case before the deadline, but not complete it?
So the construction has to be completed and the monitoring and evaluation has to be completed. So it's not as simple as the construction finishing on June 30. There's an element that would need to happen post completion to satisfy the requirements of the program. So it's getting pretty tight.
Okay. I understand. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just to let you know, councillors, when I was talking with NZTA, I have actually been trying to follow them up at head office to get clarity on what the conversation was, so I can be absolutely sure I heard it the way I heard it on the day. So I'm trying to do that, but I couldn't get it done today. I tried. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Ms Southgate. Just a question in our, probably a Martin one, in the motion that we've got put up here, not the staff one, but the one that's come today. In B, we're talking about reallocating the surf funding to bus shelters and bike parks. Is there anything else that it could be allocated to?
Yeah, we did consider the list, but it comes back to Peter's point about opportunities to complete before the 30th of June. So starting a project like now, we have got others that are designed up, but whether we could get them built by the 30th of June is really hard. Bus shelters and bike parking is quite straightforward, so they're easy to roll out relatively quickly. That's why we sort of picked those as like easy wins, really. And we've got a program, we've got a list.
Yeah, and so is this essentially providing shelters where there's bus stops and there's nothing there at the moment, and covering them and all that sort of stuff?
It's essentially upgrading. We've got a lot of old shelters out there coming to the end of their useful life, so it's picking those sites first, putting in the new shelters, working through that list gradually.
Right.
And we've got a lot of sites where people want bike parking as well that we haven't got to yet, and they're again easy to install.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Hutch.
Thank you. The Infrastructure and Transport report from the 26th of September has the matrix of options that were presented to us, and 7 options. We also had a workshop on this early September. I was just wondering if you could remind me what feedback from elected members was given about the potential support for a raised crossing in that workshop? Or was there any?
I have to be honest, I don't recall.
Okay. So elected members didn't give a steer that raised safety platforms weren't politically viable at that workshop?
I don't recall, I apologise.
Okay. Is it possible, do you think, through NZTA, given that you're talking about a backward direction and a forward direction, and they're no longer consistent, with one being a move away from a particular type of crossing to one being we've already approved it, so do it kind of thing. Is there any possibility that whatever we put up to NZTA on the basis of their changed thinking would be favourably received? Because in fact we're looking to the future direction as opposed to looking backwards, right?
Can you just clarify your meaning of
Well, you have said
for...
that you won't be that raised crossings don't have the favour of NZTA in the forward direction that they had in the previous direction.
That is true. So if we're talking about potential future options...
So if we proposed, for example, a flat signalised crossing, and we can talk about location, I don't want to design a road, but I'm not a net traffic engineer, so I can't design it. But if it was a flat crossing with lights that we wanted, and that is consistent with current NZTA thinking, what's the chances of success there? Because the head office indicated flexibility in their approach.
I think that is the flexibility, is if an alternative is suggested, then it'll be considered. It's the raised platform element which is no longer favourable. So if a future suggestion didn't have a raised safety platform, I can't imagine being an issue as long as it complied with the other design standards, things like setback from the roundabouts, etc. So the only contentious issue is the raised safety platform element. Alternatives can be considered. I think the challenge we just have is the time it would take for the alternatives to be prepared and whether or not you'd get those to us in a time to still be constructed. So that's the concern that exists. For the surf bucket of money. This is only an issue because of the surf bucket of money and the deadline.
Okay, councillors, we have a motion on the table. If there are any other alternative thinking, now is your time to propose it. Otherwise, we're into debate. You either support the motion. Excuse me, Councillor Ewan Acero. So, did you hear that? Yep. Yeah, so if you have any alternative, now is the time to propose it. Otherwise, we take a vote on what's on the table.
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll signal an amendment. Is it a motion, or I guess the staff's isn't on the table, right? So yours is the motion?
The staff is not on the table.
Right.
So the motion is the motion. Do you want to make an amendment?
Yes, and my amendment would be basically removing B, having C, but instructing staff to resubmit the current design without the raised platform. If it requires the signalling, and move it back to be within the design specifications from the roundabout. Right?
So it's moving it further south.
And that it is of urgency, and staff design and bring that back to us in a time frame that would enable completion by June 2025.
That makes sense. Do you have a seconder? Okay. Yep, hang on. So let's get it. Can we take a 5 minutes break to get both up and see if we're getting any closer. And then we will go to the political moment of debating. We have to get there. Councillors, excuse me, everyone. Excuse me, just had to do a very unpleasant cough that you don't want to hear. Sorry about that. Let's get back into the meeting. So I need to hear from the movers and seconders of each motion, well, for the motion and the amendment, how you have landed in your situation, please. What is so the motion, the original motion is still on the table, I presume? Could we, and it is unchanged? It is unchanged. Okay, and the amendment is this. Could you please describe what you're trying to achieve from the amendment?
Simply says this is too important to wait, that we want a signalised crossing there by June 25, and it's instructing staff to go straight to a design within the boundaries we've stipulated, and submit that alteration to Waka Kotahi, and they don't need to come back to us post that. And we will add also pressure via the Mayor and other ways to NZTA to see if we can get this by June 25. So we qualify for the SURF funding, but more importantly, we actually have a crossing by 25 June.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, a question, is it?
Yeah,
on the
thank you, Mayor Paula. I think I'm keen to hear from staff with what's there. Are those timeframes workable? That's my question.
No, actually, I'm just thinking that through. We are actually now in debate, forming up debate. So,
well, that's poor process. Sorry.
Masha, you can talk to Nguyen as a question of clarity. That's normal. You've been in an adjournment to work this through.
No one else has heard the answers from staff, though, in terms of. This has suddenly changed the debate. So
please ask the mover within reason. He should be able to answer those questions, having sorted those out.
Okay, to the mover, when you asked staff whether this could be delivered within this time frame, what did they say?
Can we ask the staff?
Okay.
Sorry, staff. We just put the options up for clarity, so that is my fault. If we had gone into a formal movement and debate, I was right. So I made a mistake on that one. Thank you. Sarah, the question was, is it feasible?
Yes.
Tight, very tight. I don't think we can meet the 30th of June deadline for a new crossing in a new location with a new design. Factoring in the consultation that we need to do, factoring in getting the designs done, looking at the notable tree issue, looking at any stormwater matters that we need to deal with through the design. I think we're looking realistically at a September-October delivery timeframe, and also if, again, going back to Peter's point around the SURF requirements for monitoring and evaluation at the end of a project, that requires another month or so work with the report to be provided to Waka Kotahi. So we're definitely outside the timeframes if we try to get the SURF.
Can I, thank you, can I ask a question of the mover? In terms of, are you prepared, we had a talk in the break, are you prepared to include something along the lines of C of the original motion? Or C, wasn't it? Could you scroll up for me, please, Amy? Sorry, excuse my throat.
Mayor Paula, I would be. That's in regards to if we didn't get a confirmation from NZ.
So a fallback position.
Absolutely. And I had a date of February, because I had assumed Martin had said that the shelters and the parking, bike parking, was something that could easily happen. And so I'm happy to add the C, but I wanted to sort of give staff an opportunity to go out and see how tight it would be before they just automatically.
Absolutely. So have you got the wording that would enable the backdrop of the alternative?
Yeah, Amy is working on it right now. And I guess I would also like to ask the question of the Chief Executive if I could. But
Yeah, we'll get to other questions. So that was my question to you for clarity.
so yes, we could happily, just going to get the wording.
Just going to get it. You want to ask a question of the Chief Executive, and then I have Councillor Casey Cox.
Lance, staff have been clear. They've described it as tight. In fact, indicated that they couldn't do it, and it's more likely September. Is it your view the organisation could try to bring as much energy and focus on what the amendment requires, and are you at least prepared to try to get it within the time frame? And we'll have a backup if we can't, but are you prepared to try to get it within the time frame?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Casey Cox.
Yeah, just a question of the amendment. Just notes, I'm just a bit confused as to what that says. Sorry. Notes the staff raise minimum trees and that have been delegated authority. What does that mean?
It's E there, isn't it now? No. Yeah.
C was trying to cover
trees.
The issue of the trees. Councillor Sarah had raised it, and when she was originally supporting this, that was something she asked to be put in place.
Yep.
It was trying to say, Andrew from staff had said, we want you to acknowledge we've highlighted the difficulties regarding two notable trees. And what this tries to say is, we've heard that you've raised it. We're asking you to do best endeavours to keep trees, but if you can't keep trees and they're not notable trees, that trees could be removed. That's what the spirit of what we're trying to say.
So what you're trying to say, if I get it, is that you give the staff the permission to do the lifting, the crowning or the thinning or the whatever
Correct,
might be required without having to do the...
I mean, ultimately, this gives us a controlled crossing by June 2025.
Yeah, I don't want to get into debate. I just want
No.
to make sure that everyone understands what's on the table. Sarah, question to the movers or...
No, it was to staff. Could you please advise how much additional local share will be likely required to fund a signalised crossing on top of what's already in SURF if this goes ahead?
Without a design, it's difficult to say, but I mean, a signalised crossing, standalone, not raised in this area, we are probably in the region of 600 to 650,000. I can't remember what's left in the budget of the SURF overall, but we'd allocated 400,000 to deliver this raised zebra crossing. Although with the signalised crossing, we'd need to go through all that design work, the safety audit work that does add extra costs. So we could be up for an additional $200,000 to $300,000 on top to deliver this alternative. That's if you get the SURF funding still.
Okay, I think the clarity... Oh, sorry, question?
Yeah, Paula, to Martin. Councillor Sarah has asked a question. In regards to the motion moved by Councillor Sarah that asked staff to come back with a number of options, which we now know would not include a raised platform, the 200 to 300 odd thousand you've just articulated would be exactly the same as what would be incurred by Councillor Thompson's motion.
I believe that's correct.
Right, so there is no different in terms of money.
I suppose the only thing I need to add to that is if we go south of Stanley Street, we might need to do some treatment to the Stanley Street intersection as
Okay,
well,
we don't
which
want
may
to-
cost.
we're not going into that at this
clearly
point.
says it's to be north of
Okay.
Stanley and south of the roundabout.
Yeah, I'll stick with what I originally said then.
Thank you. So it makes no difference on the
Thank
issue
you.
of cost.
Just questions for clarity from staff or from the movers, please, and then we'll get into debate, and there'll be rich debate on it. Councillor Tim.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. Also to Martin, I appreciate the difficulty of giving an estimate without a design in front of you, but can you tell us what the cost of the signalised crossing on Ellicott Road outside Fraser High School, which doesn't have an RSP, was, because it was a recent project, and would the two be comparable in your view?
I'm sorry, I wasn't involved in that project, so I wouldn't know.
Would Tanya or another staff member know? I'm just trying to get an idea of what the cost might be.
No, apologies, councillor, we don't have that detailed
Okay,
information.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, can we just scroll through both again? Just so, can you scroll up so we can, so they're both quite long? So I want to make sure now that you have the options in front of you, and we will go into debate on these. So we go to the mover of the option, please, Deputy Mayor.
There's really just two objectives that I'm trying to achieve, and that's to respond to the local community, in particular the Moss community, who have been waiting and lobbying us for a very long time for a safe pedestrian access to their facilities and to the location across from their facilities, which is the Claudelands Park. And also the second priority for me is to do it with the least amount of interruption to the network, given that this is a very busy road, as possible. There are around, at the last traffic count, around 62,000 cars or transport movements a day, which sounds a lot, but actually it's not on the grand scheme of things. But it is still highly used. The motion will deliver a safe level crossing by September 2025. It also takes the opportunity to deliver the next 10 years worth of bus shelters and bike parking for the city with this 90% subsidy from NZTA. So that's an opportunity that we've grabbed, and I think it's a positive one. So in the grand scheme of things, we don't lose the NZTA subsidy. We also don't consult with the community over December, January, and I want to give the team enough time to do proper consultation. I would think and I would expect that the last thing in an election year that council would want to do would be rush through consultation, and we know how consultation and engagement can go wrong when it is rushed. There's around $43 million worth of local share funding that we as a council will need to be deciding on soon what we're going to do over the 3 years of the first 3 years of our LTP as well. So if this project ends up being fully local funded, then we have the budget for that. Lastly, I want to thank the Waikato Muslim Association for their patience. They have been coming to us for a very long time, and they have been lobbying us, and I just want to get on with it and deliver the right thing for the community at this time. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
What the good Deputy Mayor has just said in terms of acknowledging the period the mosque has waited for, the importance of such a safety platform, comments in the past of other meetings where this has been discussed, from Councillor Louise to Councillor Tessera to all of us who've said this crossing is urgent. The amendment delivers it sooner, and it delivers it hopefully with SURF funding. It puts some commercial tension on staff to work quickly. We've heard the Mayor has already done some great work with NZTA in getting a broad understanding, and I have no doubt the Mayor will also advocate to NZTA to speed the process up. And the Chief Executive says that he is confident the organisation can be focused and can give this a priority. And we've added the backup. We've added the backup to ensure that if they don't, then we still can protect the bus shelters and the bicycle parks. So who wouldn't want a quicker result when we're protecting all the other steps? This is respectfully common sense, because we've all heard again today from the public submissions how important this is. Why wouldn't we want to get it done by June? Why wouldn't we want to apply pressure on staff to get them to work as quickly as possible? And why wouldn't we want to support an amendment that also protects the backup plan, that if NZTA or if staff ultimately come back to us and say, we've tried our best and we can't get it, then we still protect the bikes, parks and the shelters.
Thank you. We'll go into debate, please. Councillor Sarah.
Firstly, I want to thank the President from the Waikato Muslim Association for coming in this morning and note the further submission from the head teacher at the daycare. This is a real priority for us and I'm really keen to see something happen as soon as possible. While I'm going to support the motion, but I will support the amendment if that is what comes through as successful. And the reason for that is, yes, I want this to happen as soon as possible, but I'm asking our staff whether the timeframes are realistic. The answer was that it would probably not be realistic because unfortunately, there are a lot of steps to go through. We'll have to do the design and we'll have to consult with the neighbours and it will have to go through a traffic panel to remove the car parking and then go through construction and then monitoring afterwards. And my concern is that in the meantime, we risk that we get further down the track and we run out of time for doing other things with this funding. I think also that we've had a history of making poor decisions when we've been rushed by NZTA timeframes, and I want to get this right as well. And so I'd say to staff, I want this to happen as quickly as possible, but I also have listened to the advice that the 30 June deadline for all of those things to happen is not feasible. So I think that it's just pragmatic what is in the motion at this stage. But ultimately, I will support I'll support the amendment if it comes through as being favoured.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Southgate. I'm supporting the amendment because I think it covers all bases. It covers all options. We try and get it done quickly and get the SURF funding for the project. If we can't, well, we can use the SURF funding elsewhere. So let's do this. I support it because let's do something wholly uncouncil-like and just get on with it and get it done. I want staff to put some energy into coming back quickly with a solution here without hearing about all the obstacles, and something that doesn't include a dear old raised safety platform which seem to keep coming back to it. Let's get on with it, find a pragmatic solution. There's a need here and we want to fix the need. Let's cut through the bureaucracy and get it done. And as I say, if we can get it done and get the SURF funding, win-win. If we can't, we use the SURF funding for bus shelters. I think the reason we are going round in circles here is because most of us, I think, or a lot of us, were unhappy with the staff motion, which contained the raised safety platform yet again. And I'm not sure when that message is going to get through that a lot of us won't go near those things. They keep coming back. And I think to put a raised safety platform in that close to the roundabout is an appalling idea. And I think it would just continue to strangle our roading network. And to be perfectly honest, I think people would have laughed at it. to see a raised safety platform in that location. If we look at the long-term solution for this roundabout, it's ultimately going to be done up as an intersection for the cross-city connector. That's what needs to happen there. It's going to be a big project, it's going to cost a lot of money, and we'll need to schedule that and try and get NZTA funding. So I can see no point in putting a raised safety platform there. So to be honest, I'll be glad to see the end of the SURF funding. I'm a little tired of it being held over us, and I think it forces us into silly decisions and bad decisions instead of making decisions on the merit of a situation. We're always trying to jump through loopholes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? Oh, sorry, Emma. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just want to thank staff for their report and also both of the passionate speakers in the public forum today. Waikato Muslim Association, Mr. McDonald, thank you for your contribution. It is obvious that there's a clear need for a safe crossing at Heaphy Terrace, and I think the Chamber is unanimous on that front, which is encouraging. But I just believe that if we can push everyone to deliver a signalised crossing, which would support the community, the traffic flow, our safety needs, NZTA funding, and aim to deliver this in the quickest possible time of June 2025, I think we should really push for that, and it would get us the best of both worlds. So I believe the amendment will be a good balance, as well as having the backup option protecting funding. So I'll be supporting the amendment today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Oosten.
Kia ora. Right at the very beginning, I was very much in support of the staff recommendation, but I've come clearly to be able to see that there just hadn't the support in order to be able to have it delivered. And that's a real shame, because it would have met all of the timeframes, it would have been 90% paid for by Waka Kotahi, and it would have allowed the ECE Centre and the visitors to the mosque an opportunity to be able to cross safely. So we can't do that, and the motion that's been put up by Councillor Sarah and Deputy Mayor Angela is the most pragmatic solution to resolve it. I want us to have a think about, though, the costs that will be involved in doing this. It's inevitably a cost for us as a city that's going to be extra that we'll have to find in our budgets. And we already have some really stretched and under stress budgets to consider here, and we haven't really even had the discussion about how to resolve some of that local share. And I don't want us to be prioritising things over others before we've seen the really big picture. However, I can recognise that there is the need to give this some of the highest priority. We've been far too long in making decisions, and we need to get on with it, as Councillor Jeff has said. But I don't accept that the SURF funding has been a complete failure. I just look at my own area to see some real benefits of for our community there. We have a roundabout at Grey Street, which is really busy and has 4 raised safety platforms. We have a raised safety platform at our local cafe. And despite all of the nobody's going to like it, everybody loves it. And there have been very few complaints.
Time.
Thank you. But there's been very few complaints. And so,
thank you,
yes, there are naysayers.
Thank you. Councillor Naidu-Roth.
Thank you. Echoing a few speakers who have thanked the Waikato Muslim Association for their ongoing advocacy and their need they ask of us for our support to enable their young ones and their community safe crossing. I'll be supporting the amendment. I think that it opens up the door for a possible quick win for that community. And I do fear that when the time comes, there's going to be quite a long list vying for that local share. And so if there's a possibility that we could get it funded through SURF, then we should definitely try our best to do that. So yes, I'll support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Hart. Thank you. No, you go.
We're actually just trying to get to microscope approval. We haven't been out to the community and done full consultation on this. We actually haven't heard what the full community thinks. This isn't final sign-off and it never has been. My two priorities for this decision is, does it meet the needs of the people who use the mosque, the park and the ECE? Does this desire line match where people want to cross? And can we implement this in a timely manner, noting the mosque has been advocating this for 6 years and I couldn't accept an outcome that was past 2026. But I'm actually really frustrated with this. And I want to be really upfront about where that frustration lies, because we have a consistent problem where staff bring us projects and workshops. Some workshops have attendance as poor as only half elected members. Options are put in front of us for direction and discussion, and objections are not shared. If we'd had the discussion we'd had today, back on September 4th, 7 weeks ago, we could be in a very different place than we are now. We might be signing off macroscope approval for a signalised crossing between the two places with a curb build out, maybe. Maybe staff could have been confident that we could adhere to the SURF timeframes. I didn't have a problem with a raised platform, and it's not my role to advocate for other people's political positions. But I believe this crossing is important enough that we should fund it ourselves. We need to take more care with communities who face discrimination, who we heard from last time, simply building a mosque in the first place wasn't without violence and backlash. I want us to stop mucking them around. I want us to take more care. I want my colleagues to feel empowered to participate in this process and state their objections up front so we can work with them. And I want us to follow a better process in order to do that.
Thank you. Time. Any further debate? If not, I will debate. Thank you. Thank you, actually, to all. This has been a very complicated issue. Hasn't been easy to find a solution. Thank you to all of you who have stepped in seeking to find a viable solution. The good news, and there is good news, is that we are actually not poles apart on either of these motions. Neither actual option promotes a raised platform. And I just want to say that again, neither of the two options promotes a raised platform. I want a crossing. I will push hard for one. I won't support a raised one. We are all agreed on the crossing, therefore, as quickly as possible, and I think it should be preferably funded by NZTA in good measure, who themselves have acknowledged two things. First, the need for a crossing in that area, and secondly, that raised bumps do not form part of the future direction for NZTA at this time. And that is a directive from the Ministry of Transport to NZTA as the delivery arm under the Minister's direction. So I'm going to support the amendment only because I believe it brings a little clearer signal about the preferred outcome that we are seeking. And it enables us to push really hard, and I will be pushing. I will go back to the people with whom I have had recent conversations and say, look, if this crossing is still needed, and we believe it is, how do we work together to get it done? Because I don't want the message to go back to the mosque, the childcare centre, the local residents of Claudelands or Fairfield, and say, I don't want a crossing, because that's not true. I want a crossing. I want it soon. I want a safe crossing. I want it soon. And that's what I'll be pushing for. Thank you. Any further debate on anyone else? Oh, what? Right of reply then. Thank you.
There's no guarantee that the amendment will be delivered by June. We've heard that. But let's be real, its fastest is 3 months. The motion will deliver a safe pedestrian crossing by September. The amendment, in my eyes, is riskier with time pressures, and for the sake of those 3 months where we know we can do it properly and we won't be rushing to consult or engage with the community, is critical. And as Councillor Hutt points out quite rightly, we haven't heard back from the community, the wider community there, that we need and must consult on. The amendment is saying we're going to go full speed. I accept the reasons why. But this could be viewed as this council having already made up their mind, having already made a decision, so why bother any of those residents that we're going to consult with, why should they bother giving us our views? We've been criticised many, many times in the past for doing that. And that's what I think this 3 months will force us into that position. What should drive us today is the right decision, not the fastest just for the sake of it, because engagement with our community, consultation and meaningful feedback from our community on a transport project that we know the community has, particularly at the moment, a lot of views on, is the bigger risk here. So I will not be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for really solid debate. We will go to the vote, and of course the amendment, which is the one that has been moved by Councillor Wilson and seconded by Tim, is the one that goes first. So we're voting on the... Andrew. Oh, look, Mark, you've raised your hand. Was it up? Did I miss it? Did you want to debate?
I think he's voting.
He's voting.
No, you haven't. No.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
Let's use the error.
That's okay. I just saw it at the peripheral of my eye and thought, have I missed someone?
Sorry.
So we're going to the...
Apologies.
Thank you. That's fine. Voting on the amendment, please. What's happening?
The amendment is carried, 8 for, 7 against.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. The amendment now becomes a substantive, councillors. So now we go to the vote for the substantive motion. The amendment becomes a substantive now, Tim, so you get to vote on it again.
The amendment as the substantive motion is carried, noting that Deputy Mayor O'Leary and Councillor Van Oosten are dissenting.
Thank you, everyone. That brings us to the end of the open session, doesn't it? Oh, we've got the temporary road closure. Okay, thank you. Right. All right, the temporary road closure should be, double fingers crossed. And also Louise will move and I will second. Are there any questions on this? It happens pretty much all the time, right? So if there's no questions, is there any debate? I don't need to debate it. So you don't need to. You don't want to debate? Oh, excellent. So we'll go to the vote then, please, everyone. Thank you. Cool.
Councillor Casey Cox.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Resolution to exclude the public. Thank you. Moved, seconded. Maxine, all in favour, please say aye. Opposed, carried. So we'll just give us a moment to turn off the cameras and get into closed agenda.